Welcome back, all my fight fans. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys my predictions for Fight Night Edmonton coming up November 2nd. I don't usually do predictions for fight nights, but because I'm going to be at this card, I thought it would be fun to do. So if any of you guys are going to the UFC Edmonton event, please let me know down in the comments and we can link up at some sort of gate and chat about fights. It would be sick. I'm going to be there for the whole event. I'll get there right for the early prelims. I always do that for UFC events. I watch everything. There are a couple fighters on this card that I am not the most familiar with, so I'll just admit that right out of the gate. The first couple fights I'm a little bit unfamiliar, so hopefully I'll get to know some new names off of this card. So kicking us off, we have the women's flyweight bout between Jamie Lynn North from Canada and Ivana Petrovic from Croatia. So I'm not the most familiar with either of these women. I just hope it's a fun fight. Obviously, I'm rooting for the Canadian. When the UFC events come to Canada, they stack the cards with a bunch of Canadian fighters. And then obviously I'm biased towards all the Canadian fighters because I want them to win. But I'm really cheering for this Canadian chick. I hope she puts on a good performance, and I hope I get to learn a new name that night. So moving on to the bantamweight division, we have Chad Alhiliger and Helliger. I'm going to butcher names, as I always do, so I apologize. Versus Cody Gibson, Canadian versus an American here. Obviously, I'm going to be cheering for the Canadian. I've seen him fight a couple times, actually. I've seen Chad in there a few times. He's more of a 50-50 fighter. He doesn't impress me too much. Cody Gibson, I've seen fight a couple times. I think he's got a little bit more grit to his game, so I'm probably going to take Cody to win this. Although, like I just said, I'll be cheering for the Canadian. Then we have a bantamweight fight between Ukrainian Serhiy City and Garrett Armfield. This Ukrainian fighter, he's quite good. He's 10-2 with 7 wins by knockout. I've seen him fight a couple times. I really like his style. I think he could have a good career in the UFC. I believe he's coming off of his second loss ever, so he's coming off of a loss, so I hope he bounces back on this one. There's a lot of Ukrainians in Canada, so I'm sure we'll all be rooting for this guy as well. And then we have the number 13th ranked at heavyweight, Alexander Romanov versus Rodrigo Nascimento, who is ranked number 15 right now. I gotta say, man, Romanov, he's very hit or miss for me. You know, he's a fantastic fighter when he's on. When he's on, he knocks people out in devastating fashion. You know, he's 17-3. But then you'll have those fights where you're like, yeah, you probably needed to win that one if you wanted to go on a run. So hopefully he can get a win here. I know the Brazilian is 11-2, so a similar record. I just hope that it's a fun fight. I hope these boys slug it out at heavyweight. And every time there's a heavyweight fight, I'm just praying it doesn't turn into Ngannou versus Lewis or some sort of heavyweight fight where they're both just gassed and they can't throw any punches. So hopefully this one's fun. These guys are a bit on the bigger side. They got bellies on them. So hopefully they don't gas out, and hopefully this is a fun fight. Then we have a featherweight bout between Jack Shore and Yusuf Zalal. This is going to be an incredibly fun fight. I'm definitely marking this one down. You got Yusuf Zalal 15-5. He's got 4 wins by knockout, 8 by submission. Jack Shore, I believe we saw him on that UK card. He's 17-2, 4 wins by knockout, 9 by submission. So these guys are very well-rounded. 8 submission wins versus 9. I'm going to take Jack Shore just because he seems like he's surging and he seems like an up-and-coming prospect. I'm going to go with him in this one. Then we have a bantamweight bout between Charles Jourdain and Victor Henry. I'm not the most familiar with Victor Henry. I know he's 24-6. He's got a pretty good record, but I'm going to be cheering for Charles Jourdain, and I'm going to pick him to win. He's coming off of a loss to Jean de Silva, which I always say his name French, even though he's Brazilian. But that was an excellent fight for Silva, man. That Fighting Nerds team is fantastic. Great performance. I hope Jourdain bounces back. I really like his fighting style. It's super entertaining. He's not very good when he gets hit. He kind of showcases a lot of damage when he gets hit. The way he rolls with punches is just weird, but I love his fighting style. He's incredibly entertaining. This is definitely a fight to highlight. Every time Charles Jourdain's on a card, you got to highlight that fight. Then we have a women's flyweight bout between Adriana da Silva versus Yasmin. I'm going to butcher a name here. Yasudavicius. Oh, man. And she's Canadian, too. That's a tough name. I'm going to take Ariane da Silva. I'm messing up so many names today. Ariane da Silva. I'm taking her. Not just because I have a crush on her, but because I think she's an excellent fighter. I think they call her the Queen of Violence, and she does fight like that. She has a very entertaining fighting style. She's 17-9. She's got 4 wins by submission, 6 by knockout. The other girl, Yasmin, she also has a pretty good record, 11-3, 2 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. Like I said, I'm going to take Ariane Da Silva, and I hope she gets the dub. Then we have a bantamweight bout between Ayman Zahabi versus Pedro Munoz. Now, I'm a big fan of Pedro Munoz. I've seen him fight so many times. He's one of my favorite fighters at this weight class. He always brings an entertaining fight. He always brings grit, and he's 20-9. He's a little bit old. He's getting long in the tooth, so I'm going to take the other guy. The other guy's 11-2, 6 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, 8 wins in the first round, 8 first-round finishes, I should say, and I'm going to take that guy. He seems like he's up and coming and surging. He's Canadian. I believe he's training with Firas. I'm not 100% certain about that, but I believe he's a part of Firas Zahabi's camp, and I'm going to take him. That's the prelim headliner. So now we get into the main card, where we have Mike Malott versus Trevin Giles at welterweight. I'm going to take Mike Malott. I think I love the way he fights. He brings a violence and an energy to his fights that's just so fun. He's 10-2. He's got 4 wins by knockout, 6 by submission, 9 first-round finishes. Trevin Giles also has a pretty good record. This is a very good matchup. 16-6, 6 wins by knockout, 5 by submission, 4 in the first round. I'm taking Mike Malott by first-round knockout. I hope he shows up for the Canadian fans and gives us just a boom to kick off the main card. So I'm picking that. And then we have, for middleweight, Marc-Andre Barbeau. Every single time Mike Malott's on a card, you also see Marc-Andre Barbeau, I feel, versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Oh boy, I'm butchering that name. Marc-Andre Barbeau, again, is a little bit hit or miss. I think Mike Malott's a little bit more of a surging prospect. I see more potential in him. Marc-Andre Barbeau, he has fantastic fights. He's a very gritty fighter. He almost fights like Sean Strickland. You know, he fights like Sean Strickland says he wants to fight, I should say. And this Dustin guy, he's 15-6, 2 wins by knockout, 6 by submission. It's very hard to call this fight. Like I said, Marc-Andre, he's very hit or miss. He's a little bit of a 50-50 fighter, but he always comes to fight. He's 16-7, 10 wins by knockout. I'm going to take him by knockout in the second or third round. I really hope he bounces back. I believe he's also coming off of a loss. And then we have a light heavyweight bout between Cal Machado and Brendan Ribeiro. 2 Brazilians matching up against each other on this one. Ribeiro is 15-7 with 9 wins by knockout, 6 by submission, and 11 in the first round. He seems like a surging prospect. And then Cow is 8-3, 4 wins by knockout, 2 by submission. I'm going to take Brendison Ribeiro. Jesus, what a weird name. I'm taking Ribeiro. He seems like a much more deadly fighter. I feel like he has much more finishing ability just based off of the records there. So I'm going to take Ribeiro by, let's say, by third round knockout. Then we have a heavyweight bout between the 11th ranked Derek Lewis and the 13th ranked Jahota Dins. This is another Brazilian fighter. He is 8-0 with 7 wins by knockout. Derek Lewis getting long in the tooth as well. He has a lot of fight experience, 28-12 with 23 knockouts. So this fight is probably ending in knockout. If I had to put my money on one fight ending in knockout the whole night, it's gonna be this fight. I'm gonna take Diniz because I'm not the biggest Derek Lewis fan, and I feel like he's kind of getting towards the end of his career, and I feel like the other guy's up and coming. So I'm gonna take the other guy, but this is going to be fun, man. Somebody is going lights out in this fight. And then we get into kind of the 2 main fights. So we have a women's flyweight bout between number 3 ranked Erin Blanchfield and number 5 ranked Rose Namajunas. So I really like this fight. I think that this is a great test for Blanchfield. It's probably the perfect test for her to see if she's ready for that championship reign. And I really wanted to see Blanchfield versus Barber. That was kind of my dream fight to see. I know that they're both kind of young, so it's weird to match them up if it's not for a title, but I think that fight will happen for a title one day, and it'll be a great women's fight. This fight will also be fantastic. I think it might even be a bit better, especially on paper, because Rose is such an entertaining fighter. She's got head kick knockouts, you know, she could put anybody's lights out, and I think Erin Blanchfield is going to have to look to wrestle in this fight. She's going to have to look to mix in some takedowns to make it a real MMA fight. Maybe even try to slam Rose on her head since that's worked once before. But yeah, this is a hard one to call, man. Rose, you just can't really bet against her. She's 14-6. She's got those 2 wins by knockout, 6 by submission, 5 in the first round. She just beat Tracy Cortez. So it's hard to bet against Rose, but I'm going to take Blanchfield in this fight. You know, she lost to Firo, but besides that, her record's been, for the most part, flawless, and she seems like an up-and-coming prospect. She's still young, so when fighters are, like, below the age of, like, 26, 27, you can't really write them off ever because they're still on their way up, and when they're this good at that age, you gotta give them props. It's like Tyra, right? Tyra was undefeated at 24. Sadly, he lost that 0. It was a close fight. It was a split decision, but Tyra's 24 years old, man. That fight just adds to his stock. That Royval loss just adds to his stock. He's going to be a champion one day for sure. I'm absolutely certain of it. I'd love to see him versus Ray in Japan for the flyweight belt. I should say. That would be awesome. But getting into the main fight of the night, we have the number 2 ranked Brandon Moreno versus number 3 ranked Amir Albazi from Iraq. Boy, is this a fun fight. I love and don't like Brandon Moreno. His fighting style is sick because he's high output, high volume, and he puts his chin on the line. He will slug it out with anybody. He slugged it out with the God of War, which is insane for, what was that, 4 or 5 fights? Stupid amount of fights. I think it was 4. But he slugged it out with the God of War, stood there in the pocket with him. He has this fighting style that's so fun to watch, but his stance annoys the crap out of me. I hate the way Brandon Moreno stances up with his chin up and his like elbows tucked. It's just weird. I don't like it. It really annoys me when he fights. But besides that little nitpick, Brandon Moreno is one of my favorite fighters at flyweight because of how entertaining he is, for how much grit he brings to fights. And it's hard to bet against him here, but Amir Albazi is 17-1. He's got 5 wins by knockout, 9 by submission, 9 in the first round, and he seems like an up-and-coming guy. Like, it was between Albazi and Makayev that I was thinking, like, one of these 2 guys are probably going to be champs soon, and then eventually once Tyra and Ray get up there, they'll probably dethrone them because their ground games are just so amazing. Tyra and Ray on the ground are just next level. They're going to strangle so many people at flyweight, but until then, my bet was kind of on Makayev. Unfortunately, the UFC cut him, even though he won 9 fights in a row and he was undefeated in the UFC. But whatever, we lost Makayev, so my next guy's kind of Albazi because he seems to have that streak going for him. He's not completely undefeated, but basically there. And he's got knockout power in his hands. He could submit you. He can wrestle you. I feel like he has more tools to win this fight. So I'm going to take Albazi by decision just because I think it's so damn hard to finish Moreno. If Davidson Figueiredo struggled with Moreno for that long, I feel like Albazi's going to struggle with him too. I think everybody's going to struggle with Moreno. It's just hard to knock that dude out. He's got such a great chin. He's got that Mexican fighting spirit in him. He will never give up in a fight. So I just hope for a fun fight, man. I really hope for a fun fight. This is going to be an awesome card. I can't wait to go. The last time I went to a UFC event live was 2019. That was the last time they were in Edmonton for a pay-per-view. One of the best experiences I've ever had at a live event. Is phenomenal. Probably my favorite sporting event. It's hard to say because I've been to some, playoff games in the NHL, and that's pretty freaking electric. But, UFC's right up there, man. And watching it live is very weird because I watched Holloway versus Edgar, and we thought watching it live that Frankie Edgar won the fight, which sounds ridiculous because when I went back and watched it on Fight Pass, I'm like, what the heck were we watching? But when you're there live, it's different. It's very different. You don't have the commentary. You don't have that up-close angle. You're kind of watching from the stands, but you can also hear the punches. It's a unique experience, and I encourage everybody to go watch a UFC event. If you're watching this video and you're a fan of the UFC and you've never been to an event live, like, save up your pennies, even if it takes you a couple years, and go see an event live. It's absolutely worth it. If any of you guys are going to the event on November 2nd in Edmonton, please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to meet up with you guys. I want to start meeting some fans, I guess, in person. I know this video is not going to reach the most people, and the odds that I'm reaching somebody from Edmonton is quite low, but if there is anybody out there, let me know. And let me know your guys' thoughts on all these fights. I'm actually pretty excited for this fight night, not just because I'm going to it, but because it's actually a pretty stacked card, I think. I think they've actually brought us a pretty good card here, so I'm excited to watch it. It'll be my my mom's fiance now, and my cousin's first time seeing an event live, so I'm excited to go with them. And yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts on the fights down in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends. It helps boost this channel in the algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching as always. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.